A Begin in the Dark by No Haijiachi. Chapter 10. What Your Heart Says. Izuku feels like he's not walking as much as he's skipping 3 meters above ground. That vision he experienced had been so weird and scary at first, but understanding of what he was looking at had come to him right away, and for once it had been so refreshing to see faces, even if he would never know most of the people behind them. Real faces. And being able to finally put one to All Might's normal form. Izuku was so lucky! Midoriya! He slides on the seat by Uraraka and Ida, knowing he had a huge grin on his face. Wow, you look really happy, she comments, a smile in her voice. You really gave us a scare down there before, Midoriya, Ida adds. Is your hand fine? Yeah, he laughs, embarrassed. Pretty soon, pretty mean to fall for it, eh? Thankfully, I managed to shake the control off just in time. My hand's fine. Recovery girl took care of it. He pokes at his still bandaged hand. It feels a bit tingly, but it doesn't hurt. Did I miss the battle? Nope, Todoroki and Sarah are just about to begin, Uraraka says, her voice turning a bit serious. He hears the rustle of clothes as she sits a bit straighter. I wonder if Sarah has a plan. Todoroki is quite the fearsome rival, but we of 1A are pretty accustomed to his fighting style. I'm sure Sarah must have thought of something to counter him. Izuku leans a bit over the railing, hands on the cool middle. President Mike is just about to claim the start of the fight. Todoroki's light has a nervous stillness to it, like he's trying his best not to shiver. Izuku can't help but think about what Todoroki told him, and his good mood rapidly slides away from him. As soon as the start is given, Sero shoots forward with a surprising speed, not losing a second with his attack. Ida makes a little surprised gasp by him as Uraraka cheerfully exclaims, Way to go, Sero! Then Todoroki's light explodes. Izuku manages just in time to lean back and avoid the ice that would have definitely hit him right in the face had he not moved. Silence falls on the crowd. And then voices start to raise, telling Sero to don't mind too much, that he gave his best. Izuku watches as Todoroki's light stops the nervous shivers, and then a deep, sedated sadness takes its place while Todoroki starts to melt down his own creation. Izuku's stomach gives a painful churn, finding in that sadness a familiar feeling he had not felt for a long while. Ochako had been silently watching. Ida left a bit ago since it was almost his turn, and it was just her and Midoriya now. He was giving her such a mood whiplash. When he first joined them, Midoriya had the look of someone who just won the lottery. For whichever reason, she had no idea, but it was nice to see him so happy. But then, after the fight between Todoroki and Sero, if you could call it that, Midoriya looked like someone killed a puppy right in front of him, pale as if he was about to be sick. And then he shook himself out of whatever funk he had fallen into, fishing his recorder from his pocket, and started recording vocal notes in the usual muttering during the fight between Kaminari and the girl from 1B, Shiozaki. Midoriya had been a constant source of surprises ever since they'd met at the exam, but today he surely was going overboard with it, between all this strange moodiness and the crazy way he ran the obstacle course. And seriously, how did he even do that? This guy, she swears. Ochako sighed, a small lopsided smile on her face. Of all the people she had to fall for, you are already forming strategies, right? She asks after Midoriya stops his recorder, taking a deep breath. He seems embarrassed by that, a bit of red rising to his cheeks. You notice, eh? He says, his head leaning on his side. Yeah, I like to keep tabs on everything. I have notes about everyone. Even me? She asks with a little grin, and Midoriya blushes even more. He was fun to poke at. Actually, yeah, he stammers. I have a ton of notes about our entire class. Ochako closes her eyes, taking a deep breath. You are really giving it all today, she says in a low voice. You're always working hard, but today, sometimes I feel like I will never catch up to you. Midoriya's face turns serious, his fingers tightening around the recorder. You don't have to catch up to me. I think you are perfect the way you are. Ochaka's heart does a little somersault. She mentally slaps herself. She's here to become a hero. She better damn focus on her objective. Still a bit of fun doesn't hurt as she pokes with her index finger on Midoriya's cheek. So what? Only the boys are allowed to be competitive? She asks in a fake offended tone. No! That's not what I meant at all! She cannot help but laugh at Midoriya's frantic gestures, and after a couple of seconds, he sputters before joining her. Right after Ida's a bit embarrassing, poor Ida, match, Uraraka gets up and leaves without a word. Izuku follows her light with his head, worried. Soon enough, it will be her turn and she will be matched against Kachan. He sighs. It's the worst possible match. He distractedly observes the rest of the fights, thinking, there must be something he could do to help. When he enters the waiting room, both Uraraka and Ida are there. Oh, Midoriya, he says as he enters. I was just wondering, surely Bakugo will be a little gentler against a female opponent. Izuku immediately replies with a decisive, nope. Ida seems to deflate a bit at that. Izuku gives him a little lopsided smile before approaching the table where Uraraka was sitting. Listen, Uraraka. Her face is turned up to him, silent. He can feel her energy, a big touch of fear, but also a lot of resolution, a burning need to do better. Izuku came here with the intention to speak with her, suggest her a plan he thought of during the previous matches, but now he finds himself faltering. When Uraraka asked him if only the boys were allowed to be competitive, she seemed to be mostly joking. And yet he knew there was a touch of truth in that. He'd been an idiot, and so unfair to her. Kachan, he wants to climb on that #1 podium, he says instead. He will give it all no matter who he has in front of him. Everyone is. And I believe you can do it if you give it your all too. At that, she lets out a little surprised gasp. Uraraka, you are smart and talented, Izuku continues with passion. It's true that Kachan is super strong, but you know what? You are strong too, and I wanted you to know I firmly believe in you. I know you can beat him if you put all yourself in a battle. Silence follows his declaration, and then Uraraka stands in front of him. Midoriya, give me your fist. Huh! She takes his right hand, closing the fingers into a fist, leaving his hand hovering in front of him. Then she bumps it with her own. I will see you in the final, she says, not a touch of doubt in her voice. Izuku grins. Oh no, Ida whispers near him. The battle is brutal, his classmates muttering between themselves of how unbalanced the situation is. As he predicted, Kachan is not holding back. That seems to come as a surprise to most, but certainly not to Izuku. He has known him long enough. But Uraraka, that plan seems more risky, but honestly, it's probably much better than what Izuku himself thought of in the first place. Don't look away, Ida, Izuku says quietly. You seem rather calm, Midoriya, Ida replies, almost reproaching. Trust me. Don't look away. Izuku continues, his eyes firmly on the ring. Uraraka has an ace up her sleeve you haven't noticed yet. He can feel Ida's confusion, and just a few instants after comes the voice of Aizawa-sensei through the mic, scolding the crowd like he does with his students. He has recognized the strength of his opponent. That is why he will not let his guard down. Go, Uraraka! Izuku whispers, fingers tight on the railing. In the end, despite her best efforts, it's all for naught. Izuku sighs deeply. Everyone had been very impressed once they finally noticed what Uraraka was doing, but Kachan, he simply was too strong. Uraraka had done great, shown everyone what she was made of. But he knows that it is not enough for her, that she will be disappointed with herself. He knows because he'd feel the same way too. Silent, he gets out of his seat, getting back down to the inside corridors of the stadium. He's mumbling to himself, trying to think of something to say to cheer her up, when a familiar voice behind him stops him in his tracks. "Hey, shithead!" Izuku turns around just barely. "I bet you put that crazy suicidal plan in her head, didn't ya?" Kacchan asks between his teeth. "Stop trying to throw wrenches in my way, you little—" "I didn't tell her anything," Izuku replies, voice leveled. "If you felt an obstacle in your way, that was Uraraka's doing." That seems to shut him up. Izuku keeps walking. As he stands outside the waiting room once more, Izuku knows that there are no words that he can really say to her. Her light is so disappointed, so crushed, so humiliated. Izuku wouldn't want anyone to see him like this. Would he be in her place? He turns, walking down the corridor instead. He will tell her how proud he is once the time is right. And as destiny wills, he ends up walking into the person he had most recently learned how to despise once he turns a corner. Endeavor's light is as hot as his quirk is, a burning core of resentment, ambition, and self-confidence. Izuku wondered who he could be for barely a second before Endeavor spoke. "Oh, it's you," he says, unimpressed. Izuku turns his head up, frowning and silent. "You made quite a show in that first match." Endeavor continues. "The pressure you exerted with a single finger, that raw power. Now something like that seems wasted on someone like you." The contempt in his voice clamps like a vice around Izuku's heart. How fast he got used to being considered an equal rather than a deadweight. Not that it surprises him that someone that would abuse their own son in the way Todoroki described to him would also consider someone like Izuku as a second-class individual. "My shadow has a duty to fulfill, so you better have the decency of trying to give him a real match. I will be watching." Endeavor walks past him as Izuku grits his teeth so hard he feels them like nails on a chalkboard in his mouth. "I will make Todoroki show you," he says, then, voice low. Endeavor, behind him, stops. "What?" Izuku turns just barely, baring his teeth. "He will show you. He will show that he's not you. I will make sure of it. So please, keep your eyes on the match." They are in front of one another, he and Todoroki. Izuku feels a strange calmness. It's as if the rage he felt talking with Endeavor had turned into a quiet, flat sea in his soul. It's probably because he knows what to do now. He can hear the roar of the crowd muffled, as if he's far, far away from them. "You came," Todoroki says, voice low. "Your expression—" He doesn't elaborate further, frowning. He shifts on his feet, getting ready. So does Izuku, breathing slowly as he turns into a combat position. Starts! Shoto doesn't know what to expect from Midoriya. While he's shown prowess in hand-to-hand combat in the past, Todoroki was fairly sure Midoriya's strength was still pretty average. But today it had been clear Shoto's estimation had been wrong. That huge jump, that amazing speed, the sliver of oppressing strength he felt both during the human cavalry battle and during Midoriya's match against Shinso. It was clear that Midoriya had far more in him than his gentle attitude let on. He had to finish this fast and show the shitty old man that he didn't need him. When he and Midoriya stepped in front of one another on the ring, Midoriya's expression had been puzzling. His face was a mask, not a single feeling passing through. Something he'd never seen him do before, as his classmate had always been very expressive, his feelings always open in the air. But his eyes, his pale, unseeing eyes, had a fire burning in them. Shoto's heart shot to his throat, realization overcoming him. This match was going to end in blood. Midoriya? Ochako's eyes burned still. She cried so much on the phone, but now she felt better. She clearly needed that. After closing the call with her parents, she hurried upstairs, not wanting to miss the match between Midoriya and Todoroki. I hope Midoriya will be alright, Ida murmured to himself, a nervous hand to his chin. Ochako had no idea what would happen. Todoroki was so strong. He had always been towering over the entire class, apparently untouchable. But today, Midoriya won the race. And then he charged fearless against Todoroki during the cavalry battle, breaking his guard open. An endless source of surprises. As soon as the battle started, something incredible happened. Todoroki's ice charged forward fast as a lightning bolt. Midoriya had been faster. She couldn't even follow his movements. He seemed to disappear for a second before reappearing at Todoroki's left side. He landed a punch. That's when she shot on her feet, shouting his name in surprise. Todoroki was fast too, recovering from the hit right away. He did not waste a single second, his right arm shooting forward, his eyes charging. Midoriya disappears again, reappearing in front of Todoroki in mid-air, placing a rolling kick right on his face, sending Todoroki ungracefully tumbling on the already half-frozen ring. Ida was standing too, she finally noticed. His hands on the railing, his mouth open in shock. The crowd had fallen into a suspended silence, as if everyone was simultaneously holding their breaths. Izuku felt his legs tremble. He knew he was walking a fine line. He knew he went so close to losing control both times he dashed away from Todoroki's attack. Even using one for all the way he was in short bursts was a huge risk. He knew that if his control was to slip for even a second, his legs would shatter, and that would be the end. Todoroki was standing up again, his nose trickling blood. It was as if Izuku could smell the iron in the air. He felt a shock radiating from him. He could feel his other half, the one he kept caged, trying to desperately wiggle free. But stupid, stubborn Todoroki tried again. Izuku focused his mind, only perceiving his adversary, and charged. He felt the ice graze his feet. In an instant, he was in front of Todoroki, hitting him with an uppercut that sent him flying back into the air. Izuku's ears buzz, his heart beating madly in his temples as he pants heavily. The calm sea in his soul had turned into a storming, enraged one. Are you fucking kidding me? The words are out of his mouth before he even realizes. Todoroki stood, his light shivering. Stop making fun of me! Izuku hisses through his teeth. Stop making fun of everyone! You won't beat me if you keep insisting on not using your full potential! Todoroki flinches. That's none of your business. Like hell it isn't! Izuku interrupts him, furious. Everyone is giving it all and you are standing there only using half of what you have and you think that is okay! I made a promise. Fuck it! Izuku dashes again, his legs loudly protesting, but he manages to keep control one more time. Todoroki tries to shield himself with his ice, but Izuku's right hook shattered right through that and connected. That was his first slip of control. Izuku felt the pain shot right up his arm as the bones in his hand broke, a choked yell dying in his throat. Todoroki rolls back again with the recoil of the hit painfully hitting the ring. Izuku slips on the ice, his radar going haywire for a second with a sting of pain in his hand, hitting his face on the cement. He pants heavily, his hand throbs in protest. He forces himself to climb back up, tasting the blood in his mouth. You are not your father, he pants as Todoroki does the same. You are you! This is your power! If you don't fucking fight me, for real, right now, I will lose all respect I have for you! Todoroki is still hesitating, his light squirming. It feels as if his focus is somewhere else, far, far from the ongoing battle. I'm right in front of you! Izuku insists, his left arm opening up in an exasperated gesture. Stop looking at him and look at me! He can feel it. Todoroki is falling into total chaos, shook by Izuku's words. And yet he refuses. I will make Todoroki show you. He dashes. When Midoriya manages to land another cake after a frightfully fast dash, Todoroki flying backwards, spitting blood, Yamada goes crazy. Who would have thought? The main favorite for the first place on the podium seems incapable of attacking back! He shouts into the mic. Midoriya manages to land another hit! Will Todoroki be able to fight back after this? The crowd is going absolutely insane! Todoroki's previous show of strength against Zero put him immediately on the podium in everyone's mind, but now Midoriya came, put his foot down, and was shaking off every preconception all the people watching could possibly have. Aizawa cannot help the mad grin he feels pulling at his lips. That boy got a beast inside him, and no one noticed until now. Who is this person? Shoto's mind is a mess. Midoriya took all his convictions, shattered them, and threw them away in a matter of seconds. Is this person really gentle, timid, meek Midoriya? Shoto coughs, blood splattering on the ring. His jaw hurt, a stinging point of pain cutting right through his head. Could this really be Midoriya? The person standing in front of him certainly doesn't look like Midoriya at the moment. Midoriya that smiles gently at their classmates, Midoriya patiently helping others with their studies, Midoriya worrying for his friends, pulling at his lower lip with that little frown. Midoriya that's looking down at him, blood on his face, his teeth bared, pure rage on his features. Your ice is getting weaker, he says, voice even despite the anger in his eyes. If you don't use your left side to counterbalance the cold, my next hit will be the last one. Shoto grits his teeth. He's right. Midoriya is tired too, though. He's sweating a bucket, breath heavy. He can see that his right hand is broken. Shoto certainly felt the strength capable of shattering bones on his own face. I made a promise. Why are you doing this? Shoto asks, voice low. Midoriya takes a second to answer, taking deep breaths. Because you need it. Because helping is what a hero does. Shoto feels something breaking in his chest. A memory of sweetest times. A voice familiar whispering into his ear. You can be a hero if you want to. The flames lap at him, almost comforting before he could even realize he finally let that half of himself free. Midoriya grins. You're crazy. Shoto chokes, feeling the sting of tears in his eyes, a grin of his own involuntarily pulling at his mouth. They charge at the same time. Ochako hadn't been capable to take her hands away from her mouth for the whole match. Midoriya, there was no other way to put it. He dominated the fight so far. He's standing over Todoroki now, his shoulders' movements betraying the shortness of his breath. They must be exchanging words it's impossible for them to hear. Todoroki slowly climbs to his feet, and suddenly the flames flare up from his arm and face high to the sky. Surprise ripples all through the crowd. It happens very fast. Midnight and Cementos shout out from their seats, a loud "No!" out of their mouths, just as Todoroki and Midoriya meet in the middle. The explosion is blinding. A violent, hot wind washes over the stands, yells rising all around, forcing them to squeeze their eyes shut. When they can finally see again, Todoroki is on his feet, in the ring, shivering. Midoriya is out, his back against the wall, head turned up at the sky before he slowly slides down on the ground, falling on his side. No one says a word, an unnatural silence covering the entire crowd of hundreds of people as Midnight Sensei declares him out of the ring, giving the victory to Todoroki. A single instant is what Shoto needed. They charged toward one another, he and Midoriya. He saw him pull his right hand back, ready to punch despite his already broken hand. The flames are finally warming him up. He can feel the strength of his right side back. He puts his right arm up a shield of thick ice, trying to defend from the incoming punch. His left hand is burning, heat collecting in his fist. Something must have happened. The moment Midoriya's fists collide with the ice, Shoto sees his eyes go wide, a choked cough escaping his lips. He hears the cracks, the strength of Midoriya's punch, not enough to break his defense. Still enough to break even more of Midoriya's hand, and his adversary is frozen by pain. A single instant, really. The flaming punch connects with Midoriya's cheek, sending him flying, the air exploding around them. When the dust finally settles, Shoto is still standing, despite how bruised and battered he feels after the beating Midoriya gave him. Midoriya slides on the wall and falls down outside of the ring. Shoto doesn't even hear Midnight Sensei declaring his victory, the violent beats of his heart filling his head with white noise as he pants, the flames at his left side dying down and disappearing. He's shook out of his stupor by a hand on his shoulder. "Todoroki, do you need to go to the infirmary?" she asks, voice low, while the robots in his field of vision collects the unconscious form of Midoriya. "I think my jaw is broken," he replies, the pain coming back in full force like a hot blade right through his skull. "Then go," she says, pushing him to follow after them.
Stupid boys,"
Recovery Girl is grumbling as she fusses around young Todoroki. Toshinori headed with a sigh toward the infirmary right after the battle, but hadn't expected to see young Todoroki, a bruise darkening on his right cheek and another on his left jaw, coming in right after the stretcher with an unconscious Midoriya. But in retrospect, the boy landed some pretty heavy hits. For now, though, young Todoroki is. It's not surprising that he took some serious damage. Young Todoroki spared a confused glimpse in his direction, giving him a proper little bow, but saying nothing. Recovery Girl gives young Midoriya a fast checkup, grumbling to herself.
"Asleep. Must have used up all his energy, stupid boy,"
in a low voice before turning away.
"I'll think about you later,"
she mutters at young Midoriya, despite the fact that he was out like a light. She then turns to Todoroki.
"You, sit down. Where does it hurt?"
"My jaw," young Todoroki says, trying to not move his mouth too much, flinching a bit. "I think it's broken." Toshinori thinks back to that mid-air kick that had connected directly with young Todoroki's face. Yeah, that made sense.
"You're covered in bruises, too."
Huffing, Recovery Girl climbs on her stool, placing a wet kiss on young Todoroki's face. The boy blinks, confused, before his shoulders relax. His left hand goes up to his face, massaging.
"That will make you feel a little tired, but it can't be helped," she explains. "You can't continue this farce with a broken jaw. Sit down and try to rest a bit. The bruises, I'm afraid you will have to deal with them normally."
At least young Todoroki is more prone to obeying when it's proper to do so, seeing as he silently nods, not moving from his seat, unlike a certain someone else Toshinori knows. Recovery Girl glares at him as if she considers all this Toshinori's fault, and maybe she's not entirely wrong, before turning her attention to young Midoriya. She carefully examines his bruised, misshapen right hand.
"The bones are basically in pieces. I can't just heal him like this,"
she says after long minutes of silence, clinical.
"I will need to operate first. There's a chance his hand might not be the same after."
Young Todoroki flinches at that, his mouth opening as if he wants to say something. But he closes it, silent, collecting his own right hand against his chest with a contrite expression. Toshinori wishes nothing more than to comfort him, but he is a stranger in the boy's eyes for now, and he clearly cannot just transform in front of him. As he's trying to decide if it's worth it to go out, transform, and then get back in with a risk young Todoroki might realize, the door opens.
"Midoriya!"
Young Uraraka is the first one to enter, rapidly followed by young Ida, Asui, and Mineta. She stops when she sees Todoroki.
"Todoroki, you're hurt too."
She sounds worried. The boy blinks, looking down his hand back on his jaw. It broke. It's fine now. Young Uraraka hesitates before stepping forward. She also gives Toshinori a perplexed greeting before stepping near the cot young Midoriya is lying on.
Is he asleep? Recovery Girl interrupts. And all of you should go out. Now, I need to operate. Operate?
Young Ida exclaims, his arms gesticulating wildly.
Yes, that's what happens when you fight recklessly like this stubborn friend of yours. Now, out, all of you, I have work to do.
She shushes all of them out, closing the door behind them with a bang. Once outside, a silence falls on the little group. The kids seem to have forgotten he's even there as young Todoroki asks in a quiet voice, "Aren't you angry at me?" Young Ida and Uraraka exchange a look before she speaks up.
You've both fought with all your strength for victory. It's what Midoriya wanted. Why should we be angry?
He broke his hand to fight me. Todoroki replies, his eyes casted low. It seems the sentence is directed at himself rather than his classmates.
And he broke your jaw too, so I think you can call it fair.
Young Uraraka replies, more like a question.
Seriously, Todoroki, Midoriya only wanted for us all to give our best, and that is what you did. There's no reason to be mad toward anyone.
Finally, young Todoroki looks up. There's something akin to wonder in his eyes. Young Ida steps forward.
It was an impressive battle, he says, serious, and I hope to be able to match against you in full strength, just like Midoriya did.
Young Todoroki nods, silent. Toshinori watches them go in different directions, wondering when these kids went and grew up on him so fast. When Izuku wakes, he is painfully, immediately aware of his wounds. Recovery Girl seems to have just finished putting his arm in a cast when she notices he's awake.
Oh, finally. Well, young man, this is your price.
She rapidly explains what he had to do to his hand, threatening him to not get the cast off for a couple days.
You will feel that it is misshapen, she says, severe. Let this be a lesson. You cannot just use that power of yours wildly and hope for the best.
I know, Izuku replies, voice low.
You can come back in now,
Recovery Girl says. He doesn't need to ask who she's talking to, as he had felt the presence of All Might outside from the moment he woke. All Might approaches his bed as Izuku is slowly sitting. I'm sorry, he says after a few seconds of silence. I couldn't win and show to the world that I have arrived. But you did, All Might replies in a quiet tone. Despite your loss, you showed the world plenty. Izuku blinks, turning his face up to All Might. My boy, everyone in this stadium was thinking you couldn't possibly win the moment you stepped up the ring against young Todoroki. In a matter of a few minutes, you've made them think there wasn't a single chance you couldn't win. I really thought I could do it, Izuku replies, slowly stretching his left hand. But during that last hit, I lost focus. I let One for All overcome me. It happened already once during the battle. A beat of silence. It was stupid of me. I should have tried something else. He can feel All Might's eyes boring into him. Then he speaks softly. Can I ask you something? Why did you purposefully provoke young Todoroki into using his fire? Izuku weighs the words in his mouth before answering, It's what my heart told me to do. All Might doesn't answer, putting a hand on his head with a gentle sigh. Shoto couldn't shake this indescribable feeling off of himself. The awards came and went. He silently accepted his second place after the chaotic fight with Bakugo. He almost felt bad for him for not giving it all, but at the moment he just had so many thoughts storming inside him. All Might told him that his expression was different now. Shoto wondered what he meant. He noticed the glaring lack of certain green head between his classmates. Was Midoriya so hurt he couldn't even attend the closing ceremony? Guilt gnawed at his stomach, a sensation new and yet so familiar. When he retreated back in the stadium to go change after most people had already left, he was waiting. Honestly, Shoto, For how long will you keep this tantrum going? He said, annoyed. You could have easily beaten that explosive guy. Not to mention that pitiful fight against that boy.
That had stopped Shoto in his tracks. The sneer in those words. Slowly, he asked,
What do you mean? Between all the chances you had to use your full abilities, you had to choose him. Father continued. And not only that, you let him wipe the floor with you in front of everyone. What was that, an attempt to get back at me? The rage was bubbling back up his throat again. Was he implying that Midoriya wasn't exactly as strong as he showed himself to be? The thought of Midoriya brought up different confusing feelings that overcame the pure rage he always felt against his father. You are not your father, Midoriya said. This is your power. Your power. His words sounded so true, too. Like Midoriya firmly believed in them. Uraraka said that all Midoriya wanted was for all of them to give their best. Midoriya purposefully dragged him in the light, made him think about his choices. Midoriya forced him to give his best because that is what he believed in. Midoriya openly decided to damage his own body in order to push Shoto to do better. Midoriya that wants to become a hero. Well, nothing to say. The rage dies in his throat as he takes a deep breath. Don't say that about him, he whispers, then adds, Go, don't wait for me. He kept walking to the changing rooms, ignoring his father calling after him. When he enters, the room is empty, as most students have already left. Except for one. Oh, Todoroki! Midoriya says lightly, as if they hadn't tried to punch each other into a pulp about an hour prior. I heard from Uraraka. It's unfortunate you couldn't beat Kacchan. I wish I could have seen the fight. He has a big bruise on his cheek, right where Shoto's flaming fist connected, his right arm in a cast. Are you okay? You weren't hurt, right? Midoriya asks with a little worried frown when the silence stretches. You should go to recovery, girl, if that's the case. Midoriya falls silent when Shoto covers the distance between them, getting right up to his face. He blinks, clearly confused, jumping a little when Shoto puts a hand on his chin, turning his face around a bit. He looks so different. During that fight, he made Shoto think of a wild animal ready to strike. Now he was back to his usual gentle self, his round cheeks making him seem even younger than he already was. Oh! You have a scar under your eye, Shoto mutters to himself softly. He never noticed it before. Yes? Shoto had been inspecting him so closely their noses were almost touching. With a blink, realizing what he's doing, Shoto releases him almost as if he got burned, taking a step back. Midoriya blinks at him, his mouth slightly open. Are you mad at me? He then asks, clearly very confused, frowning. No, Shoto replies after a few beats. Do you need help getting dressed? There's half a shirt hanging from him. Midoriya tilts his head on his side with a little embarrassed laugh. Actually, I could use a hand, yes. Silently, he helps him out, Midoriya not commenting on his previous strange behavior. Once done, Shoto watches him put his messenger bag over his shoulder, slipping his phone in a pocket. Before he could even realize what he's saying, he blurts out, Would it be okay if we exchanged numbers? Midoriya blinks rapidly a couple of times before giving him a brilliant smile as he hands his phone over. A couple of days later, when he sends Midoriya a text, it took him a bit to make sense of the texting app at first. Telling him that he was going to go visit his mother, Shoto immediately feels like an idiot, wishing for a way to rewind time and stop himself from trying to seek some sort of validation from him. Midoriya replies, You can do it! After only a bunch of seconds. And then sends immediately after another text containing what seems to look like a flexing arm. What does the arm mean? Shoto replies. It means you're super strong! As he finds a small smile pulling at his mouth, Shoto decides that maybe after all, it hadn't been so bad of an idea.